Hello, I'm Matt with Fabricating Firewood. Today is June 24th, 2024, and today I am going to be doing some maintenance on my Eastonmade 2228. My dogs over there are begging to go outside, but they're not going to because it's nice and hot outside. So, one thing that happened when I first got this, I noticed that the two-stage pump adjustment screw was leaking, and I had an O-ring and I changed it, but it's still leaking on the plunger. So I bought a quality set of O-rings. I'm going to change that. And then on the back of the cylinder, the outward pressure hose that's going to the back of the cylinder, that O-ring is leaking as well. And it leaks more when it's under pressure. So either it got pinched or somehow maybe under pressure it just popped out or expanded. I'm not sure. But the first thing I'm going to do, since I've already done it once, is I'm going to change the. Oh, would you calm down? I'm going to change the O-ring for on the plunger for the two-stage pump. Right? So, you're okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Matt with Fabricating Firewood. Today is June 24th, 2024. Today I'm going to be actually working on the Eastonmade 2228. When I first got it, I noticed that there was a slow leak on the two-stage pump adjustment screw, and since then it's probably about maybe 3/4 of a cup. I don't know if you can see that or not, but 3/4 of a cup of hydraulic fluid is just basically slowly dripping out of it. I changed the O-ring once, just a cheap O-ring set that I had from Harbor Freight, and it continued to leak. So I went ahead and bought a nicer quality O-ring kit, probably still from China, but it was more expensive, so I'm assuming it was better. It's the best one I could find. Couldn't find anything that said made in America, but I'm going to change that O-ring out first, and then the second O-ring that I have to change out is the cylinder on the back side that pushes the cylinder out. The main line that goes into it, the O-ring that's in that seal, or that seated 4-bolted compression fitting or whatever it is, it's leaking as well. So I have to change that. So I anticipate spilling probably about a gallon of hydraulic fluid from these lines when I go to change that rear cylinder. But the one that I'm going to do first is the two-stage pump adjustment screw plunger O-ring. So let's get to it. It's going to get messy. Good job, buddy. The adjustment nut for the grub screw is a 1/2 inch, and I'm guessing it's probably going to be a 1 inch or 1 1/16 inch. It's 1 1/4, maybe 1 1/8. It's definitely not 1 1/4. So it's got to be metric. Seems like it's a 28 millimeter, aka crescent wrench. And well, that just turned the whole thing. I don't want to turn the whole thing. Appears as the main lug has a crush washer of some sort. And it's definitely coming out of the adjustment grub screw threads. I've already confirmed that. Go ahead and get an Allen wrench to pull that grub screw out. If I recall, it was a number 4. Yes, number 4. So the adjustment screw is merely a grub screw with a 1/2 inch or a 5/16. I think it's a 5/16 grub screw with a socket on it, and I'm positive that it is not this outer O-ring that holds this compression nut. That's a lot of syrup there. Can't remember the last time I did it, how much came out before it slowed to a stop, because it hasn't run in probably about 2 months. So what I'm going to do is figure out how to plug that, whether it's taking the plunger out and then putting the nut back in, because it seems to stop it pretty much without coming down the center, and then just change the O-ring on the plunger and then put it back together. Get back, you can't come over here. Let's try this. So that'll be long enough to get this plunger off. So that's the plunger. And that's the spring. And there's the O-ring. So I'm just going to try and screw this in there. So on this plunger, I changed the O-ring, and the O-ring I put on, I think maybe it's just too tight, so it's not making good contact against the wall. So I'm going to see if I can find one that's a little better. So I can hear that oil leaking faster and faster, which means it's about to pop out. Yeah. So I'm going to squeeze it as I'm rotating it and screwing it in. I'm going to get a clamp and clamp that down. This is my Irwin X boom that I use for my flat-faced fittings. There we go. So this O-ring, since I put it on, is definitely more hardened. It wasn't this hard when I put it on. Like I said, it was just some cheap O-ring kit that I had laying around, so I'm going to try and find one that's a little bit better. This is the O-ring kit I got. I got the inch and the metric. So this is the only O-ring that I could find that would stretch enough to get on, and it's still sticking out quite a bit. I don't know if that's going to work, if the diameter is going to be too big, because it even with that nicer O-ring set that I've got. This is the Pro Series by KR Tools, the cheaper one that I got, made in China. And this is the original O-ring, which is as thin as the other ones, but not quite as thick as this one, obviously. So let's see if it fits in this. So I don't think that this O-ring is going to work, because it just doesn't compress good enough. Let me see if I can slip it in. So this it's a pretty loose slip fit, and there is not much room. Let me put it in opposite so you can kind of see, but basically there's not much room for an O-ring. I'm going to try and put a smaller diameter O-ring in there, stretch it over, and see if that works. If it's a little better. Nope. Yeah, that peeled that O-ring right off. So it's a very specialized O-ring, it seems. Yeah, just chop that bad boy right up. And that's not going to hold. So the problem I'm having is that the O-ring that came with it has got a little bit of a gouge in it, and then the O-rings that I have to replace it are smaller diameter, or not as thick, about the same diameter but not as thick, so they don't really hold very well. So it's just a slightly smaller diameter, complete diameter, and smaller in thickness. So when I put it on there, it stretches and then becomes too small to make a seal with the plunger. The original one, like I said, is damaged, which is probably why it was leaking in the first place. Man, that hydraulic fluid stinks. Can't quite put my finger on what the smell is. So I'm going to try this slightly larger diameter O-ring that isn't stretched, and hope that will actually make a better seal. So let's see here. Let me get this back off. Yeah, that makes a better seal. Put a little extra tacky grease on there. Hopefully it'll last a little longer with that in there. Put the grub screw back in. Okay, so then that and that. So let's try that. My garage is a mess. Make sure I ain't got any crud in there. Ugh, that stuff stinks. I have a feeling that's going to leak like a sieve. If I recall, it's supposed to be 2 turns or 2.5 turns. So when you touch off, you either screw it all the way down and then back off 2 turns or something like that. I'm not going to adjust it until I watch the video again of, I think either Andrew on Eastonmade's doing it, or DIY Do Network is adjusting it when he lost his grub screw. I can't remember. I'll have to rewatch the video before I adjust it, but it's not leaking for the moment. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into dumping oil all over the place. First, I'm going to empty a bunch of this oil out without spilling it into a big 5-gallon container. Oh, that's nasty. Now, I do have the actual O-rings for that they provided. I just gotta remember where I put them. I know they're around here somewhere. And let's get this oil fixed first. This is gonna be fun. Alright. This is gonna be a hot mess, I can tell you that right now. I don't think this is going to go too well. Yeah. Here we go. Whoa. Aha! Went better than I thought. And it's got to sit like this for about 5 minutes for all the surface area that it is on. It's going to take a minute to empty out.
3 hours later.
Ah! See, I have no idea where this is going to go because it's right over the top of the battery and everything. So I'm going to get some aluminum foil so I can direct it into a bucket, because this is going to be a hot mess. I'll be back. You may not know this. Don't break a thumbnail or anything, but press that in and it keeps your roll from popping out. Reminds me of that guy on Instagram who goes, "You mean for 40 years, all blah, 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 blah." If you've never seen this, I hope you learned something. Kind of a little bit of a tricky situation. We gotta go under and through things. The trick is to not tear it. You get a nice ramp. And wrap it around things, and so the weight of the oil doesn't push it down. All right. I don't see any holes. I'm going to push it this way. It's 2,000 pounds I got to move, but there's no room. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So that might be inch. 19 millimeter was quite loose. So is 3/4. Definitely not 18. Definitely not 11/16. So 3/4 it is. All right. So let's try that. Where'd my box wrench go? I'm going to pre-position some stretch wrap to stuff into leaking, gaping holes. It's going to take me a minute to figure out how everything goes back together. And I don't want to be doing this with it leaking everywhere. Okay, Henri, or Henry, however you want to pronounce it, sent me 2 O-rings for that. So I'm going to get one ready and see if I can match up a better one. So what I'm seeing is this one, it's got a pretty decent seam on it. It's not the best O-ring. This one is the closest I can find to a match in the inch. It's not a millimeter, it's the inch. The inch sizes seem to be thicker, girthier the metric ones seem to be thinner, and this one seems to be about just right. So once I get that off and see the configuration, how it actually is applied, I'm going to keep them both on the ready, because if I can get away with using the better O-ring, I'll try that one. Damn it, that was close. That almost went down in my funnel. I'm doing the bottom ones first because I would rather not have the oil dripping all over my hands. So anticipate that once I get this last one off, it's going to start draining profusely. And that's not good. That cut my aluminum foil. Curl this up in the back. All right, prepare for the deluge. Here it comes. That's not too bad. Okay, it appears that the seal, the O-ring, just sits in a channel. I'm getting a lot of hydraulic leakage. I can hear it sucking. So I don't know if that means that at some point it's going to start leaking worse or what. But, I mean, the O-ring feels fine. It doesn't feel pinched or anything. The surface feels fine. I don't see any abrasions or scratches on the surface, the mating surface. So that's the outside. So that appears to be a in-shape O-ring. This is the underside. I'm not filling any abrasions. It doesn't stretch. You just put it into a channel, and the channel is undersized as far as the depth, so the O-ring sticks out a little bit, and it just compresses the O-ring. So I'm going to clean this channel out and see. If I see anything. I don't see any metal shavings. I mean, just it's a little bit dark, dirty. I don't know. Might be just the amount of pressure was too great, because I was putting some pretty beefy sugar maple tree service wood through that bad boy. So I don't know. Okay, so from top to bottom, the thickness of the O-ring that was used is 132.5 thousandths. The new one that they provided, 141.0 thousandths. And this higher quality one is 139 thousandths. So, now here's something weird. So this O-ring that they provided, that is, or the original O-ring is 133.5, right? And the outer diameter is about 1,755. And the ones they provided, let me verify with this second one. Yeah, that's not even the right, I don't think that's the right size. So the one that they provided is literally a 1/4 inch diameter shorter. So I'm going to see. Yeah, it's it doesn't even want to stay in there. Now I'm not thinking that they provided an O-ring that doesn't just sit in there, that it's going to be tight, because it's going to be near impossible to get this thing to stay, because the channel's not deep enough unless I use a piece of sheet metal to put it on. It's staying there. So I don't know. Maybe it's because this one was in there that it compressed and flattened it out and made it a larger diameter. I don't know. Maybe. Let me see if I can't find a compatible larger diameter one. An inch. Okay, the one that I just found, if the original flattened is 134, this one that's the same diameter as this one is 138.5, and if I put it in the slot, it fits, and not only fits, but it sticks out considerably. Let's see if I can get this back out. Yeah, it sticks out just about the same as so the original old one that was leaking seems to stick out about the same as the one that's not stretched. So I'm thinking that if I put this larger diameter one in and just keep it in there, when it compresses, it'll compress equally, versus outward it might compress on both sides, inward and outward, because it's already the same thickness, because it's basically just pushing up against it. Let me see if I can wipe my hands off or handle my camera. Okay, so what I'm seeing is that this O-ring that fits in this channel is just a cutout, and it just sits in there. The black one that was the original must have been tight and stretched around the inner diameter of the channel, and then when compressed, it just basically flattened it out. And I think that if I put one that's the same diameter as the diameter of the channel, it will not press it out. It will flatten it out on both sides equally. So I think that'll be a better solution. So we'll see. I'll try it. And I'm going to put this back one on first because it's just a little easier to get on. I'm really trying to drop those bolts into that funnel and lose them. Got a decent burr here from the lock nut, or lock washer. Give that surface one more cleaning. Like I said, I don't feel any burrs. It's nice and machined flat. Alright, so pop this back out and put some Earl on it. Flick any sediment off of it. Yeah, I think that's going to work better. Keep an eye on it, make sure that you're not pinching it. Now these the main hose bushing appears to compress flat because these clamps compress flat. So there is no real over tightening them or tightening, cross like a lug nut pattern, because when you tighten them all the way down, the bushings or the bushing clamps are flat against the back of the cylinder. So I would imagine that the depth of the clamps is that such that it does not over tighten the bushing and thus over tighten the O-ring. So based on that theory, I'm just going to tighten them down because they tighten down, the clamps tighten down flat against the cylinder surface. Gotta be careful because that positive terminal is right there. All right, so that is that. Can't tell if that's sweat or oil. All right, I'm gonna watch that video real quick. The video, DIY Dude Ranch, is number 403, Eastonmade wood splitter running slow, problem solved. This is where he adjusts the grub screw that he lost that vibrated its way out. Okay, so it was screwed all the way in and then back it out 2.5 turns. So right now I'm turning the grub screw clockwise in, and it's pushing against the plunger in this cap, which has the O-ring, and that's pushing against a spring that then has another presser that pushes some kind of a spring-loaded something or other inside that opens or closes a valve to go from the second stage to the first stage. Okay, so I'm all the way in. So I'm gonna get to where I can point this straight down. So that's half, 1, half, 2, and half. Now, you can adjust this further by testing the machine's limits on where it kicks into the second stage and moves slower. And I would imagine the way it works is if you adjust it in or out, it will adjust when it kicks into the second stage. I'm just not sure which it is. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and just tighten this down and then test it when I run the splitter next, and then I'll adjust it accordingly. Alright, so that seems to be it. Make sure that I clean this oil up so that when I start running again I can tell if it's... Okay, so I'm going to open up my garage door and crank this bad boy on and go get a piece of wood and test it out in the garage, because I don't feel like moving my cat kennel, or my cat coop, or whatever you want to call it, out of the way just to test it. So I'm going to adjust this. I'm going to adjust it in a quarter turn and see if that does anything, because it's running at about 7 seconds, 7.4 seconds. So I adjusted it in a quarter turn, see what that does. That was 0.73 seconds. So now I'm going to adjust it out 3/4 turn. So now it's 3 turns out. So that didn't change anything. I'm wondering if the adjustment is just when it kicks into the second stage, and this isn't quite enough oomph of wood, it's just cottonwood. So I don't think that's quite enough to get it to kick in the second stage. Okay, so let me check for leaks real quick. Let me dry my hand off. So the plunger's not leaking. Where'd that come from? Now I hope that's not leaking. So the plunger's not leaking, and the back of the cylinder is not leaking. But I felt some oil on this output. So I can't tell if that's just basically because it spilled everywhere, or I didn't wipe it off when it came out profusely. But we'll see. Let me run it a little bit more, see if that leaks. All right, I think that was just a little bit of oil that was blowing out that got on the output line, or the input line, whichever that is. But so this is the first wood I've split in about 3 months, 2 months. No, actually, I have not split wood since before my surgery. So yeah, February, March, April, May. So 5 months. I have not split wood in 5 months. So this thing has been sitting here for 5 months because I was working on the French drain project, which is, whew. But as you can see, my gravel's nice, and that's done. My sump pump hasn't kicked on since. It seems that today's operation was a success. Time will tell whether or not the larger diameter O-ring in that rear cylinder fitting will hold up, because now it fits perfectly in the channel, and it can compress outward versus just, it can compress inward and outward versus just outward, because it is large enough to fit in there and it's not stretched. And then time will tell whether or not the larger diameter O-ring for the adjustment screw will work. So I'm hoping it's just not the grease holding it back and that it actually holds up. So that'll be it for today's video. Thanks for watching Fabricating Firewood. I'm Matt, and please like, share, subscribe, and comment.